The blonde cadet's eyes were wide with mock surprise. Girls? Well, what do you know about that? I never noticed. Yeah, I'll bet you didn't, said Tom. Well, they are trim little space dolls. And there are 3 of them. Come on, Astro, sighed Tom. We have to give the little boy his fun. They walked toward the stand where Sims was still making his pitch to the crowd. Just 5 more seats left, ladies and gentlemen, only 5 chances to blast into space. Tom stepped up and put 3 credits on the counter. 3, please, he said. Sims looked down and suddenly stopped his harangue. His eyes narrowed with suspicion as he saw the 3 cadets standing before him. Hesitating, he glanced around, seemingly looking for help. Then, shrugging his shoulders, he handed over the tickets and turned to the crowd. 3 tickets for the space cadets who live out there in space. Just can't stay away from it, eh, boys? I only hope that tub of yours holds together, said Tom. Sims snarled out of the side of his mouth, "Shut up, wise guy." And then continued aloud, "Yes, Space Cadet, I agree with you. Everyone should take a trip into space." Tom started to protest, but then shrugged his shoulders and followed Roger and Astro into the ship. On the stand, Sims continued his appeal to the crowd. Just 2 more tickets left, ladies and gentlemen. Who'll be the lucky 2? Suddenly Gus Wallace appeared from behind the ship and approached the stand, calling, "Hey, Sims!" Sims stopped speaking and turned to his partner. "Yeah?" "Everything's all set. Let's blast off." "I'll be with you as soon as I sell the last 2 tickets," said Sims. "Here you are, ladies and gents, the last 2. Wallace grabbed him by the arm and yanked him from the stand. "I said we blast off, you idiot. You want to risk everything for 2 lousy credits?" Okay, don't blow a fuse." Sims quickly closed the stand, turned out the lighted sign, and followed Wallace into the old freighter. He then collected the tickets and made sure all the passengers were strapped into their acceleration chairs and finally went below to the power deck. Wallace disappeared into the control room and seconds later his voice was heard over the ship's intercom gruffly announcing the blast-off. The lights in the cabin dimmed, the air was filled with a low whining hiss, and for an instant the old ship bucked and groaned. Suddenly, with a loud explosive roar, she blasted into the sky and began a sluggish arching climb into space. "All right, fellas," said Roger, after the force of acceleration eased off, "let's try a little encircling maneuver on those girls up ahead." "Oh, no, Roger," answered Tom. "You're flying solo on that project." "Yeah, you go ahead, Romeo." Astro laughed. "I'd like to see the Manning technique in action." A loud explosion suddenly rocked the spaceship. "What was that?" cried Roger. "Maybe this old tub won't make it after all." Astro smiled. "This is a chemical burner, remember? Her initial acceleration isn't enough. They have to keep blasting her to make speed." "Oh, sure," drawled Roger, relaxing again and watching the girls ahead. "Well, here I go." He got up and lurched down the aisle running between the seats. "Hey there," roared Sims, who had suddenly appeared at the power deck hatch. "Keep your seat." "Who, me?" asked Roger. "Not your Aunt Tilly, wise guy. Sit down and shut up." "Listen," said Roger, "you don't seem to realize." "I realize you're going to sit down or else," snarled Sims. Roger retreated to his seat and sat down. "Ah, go blast your jets," he grumbled as Sims continued up the aisle to the control deck. Tom and Astro doubled over with laughter. "Welcome back, Roger," bellowed the big Venusian. "I don't think those girls are the sociable type, anyway." "Wouldn't you know," moaned Roger, "that space creep had to show up just when I had the whole campaign laid out in my mind." He gazed sadly at the pert heads of the girls in front of him. Tom gave Astro a wink. Poor Manning. All set to go hyperdrive and ran into space junk before he cleared atmosphere. Suddenly another explosion racked the ship and the rockets cut out altogether. The passengers began to look around nervously. "By the craters of Luna, what was that?" demanded Tom, looking at Astro. "The rockets have cut out," answered the Venusian. "Hope we're out in free fall, beyond the pull of Venus gravity." The forward hatch of the passenger cabin opened and Sims reappeared, followed by Wallace. "Take it easy, folks," said Wallace, "nothing to get excited about. We're in free fall, holding a course around the planet. So just sit back and enjoy the view." A chorus of sighs filled the cabin and the passengers began laughing and chatting again, pointing out various sights on the planet below them. Smiling, Wallace and Sims marched down the aisle. Suddenly Roger and Tom rose and blocked their path. "What's up, Wallace?" demanded Tom. Wallace gave the two boys a hard look. "So it's you, huh? You got a lot of nerve coming aboard this ship." "If there's something wrong, Wallace," said Tom, "maybe we could give you a hand." "Get back in your seats," ordered Wallace. "We don't need any cadet squirts getting in our way." "Why, you overweight space jockey," snapped Roger, "we know more about spaceships than you'll ever learn." "One more crack out of you and I'll blast your ears off," roared Wallace. "Now sit down." Roger's face turned a deep red and he moved toward Wallace, but Tom put out a restraining hand. "Take it easy, Roger," he said. "Wallace is the skipper of this boiler. In space he's the boss." "You bet I'm the boss," snarled Wallace. "Now keep that loudmouthed punk quiet, or I'll wipe up the deck with him and send the pieces back to Space Academy." "Hey, Wallace," yelled Sims, who had walked away when the argument started. "Come on. We gotta fix that reactor unit." Yeah, Wallace called back. He turned to Roger again. "Just remember what I said, cadet." Brushing the boys aside, he strode down the aisle to join Sims. As the two men disappeared through the power deck hatch, Tom turned to Roger and tried to calm him down. "Skippers are skippers, Roger, even aboard a piece of space junk." "Yeah," growled Roger, "but I don't like to be called a squirt or a punk. Why, I know more about reactor units than—" "Reactor units," broke in Astro from his seat. "Yeah. Didn't you hear what Sims said?" "But this is a chemical burner," said Astro. "Why an atomic reactor unit aboard?" "Might be a booster for extra speed," offered Tom. "And more power." "On a simple hop like this? Hardly out of the atmosphere?" Astro shook his head. "No, Tom. It doesn't make sense." "Well," chimed in Roger, "here's something else I've been wondering about. They charge 1 credit for this ride, which makes a total of about 50 credits for a capacity load." "I get you," Tom interrupted. "It costs at least 200 credits in fuel alone to get one of these chemical jalopies off the ground." Roger looked at Tom solemnly. You know, Tom, I'd certainly like to know what those guys are doing. You just don't hand out free rides in space. How about snooping around? Asked Astro. Tom thought a moment. Okay. You two stay here. I'll go aft and see what they're doing. Tom walked quickly to the stern of the ship, entered the power deck hatch, and disappeared. Astro and Roger, each taking one side of the ship, strained for a look from the viewports. In a few minutes Tom returned. Spot anything? Asked Roger. I'm not so sure, answered Tom. They weren't on the power deck and the cargo hatch was locked. I looked out the stern viewport, but all I could see was a thick black cloud. Well, that's no help, said Roger. Suddenly the blonde cadet snapped his fingers. Tom, I'll bet they're smugglers. What? Asked Tom. That's it, said Roger. I'll bet that's it. The concession is just a phony to cover up their smuggling. It lets them take a load of stuff up without a customs search. Then, when they're far enough out, they dump it, supplied Astro. Right, agreed Tom finally. What better place to hide something than in space? For someone else to pick up later, added Roger triumphantly. When Wallace and Sims returned, the three cadets were busy looking out the viewports. And later, when the spaceship was letting down over the exposition grounds, Tom commented on the ease with which the ship made her approach for a touchdown. Roger, asked Tom quietly, notice how she's handling now? How do you mean? Asked Roger. Going out, said Tom, she wallowed like an old tub filled with junk. Now, while she's no feather, there's a big difference in the way she's maneuvering. Then they did dump something in space, said Roger. I'm sure of it, said Tom. And from now on, we're going to keep our eyes open and find out what it is.